The Dominance, humanity's first intergalactic battleship, had just completed its final test. The massive ship, with sleek, silver plating and glowing engines, stood as a symbol of human ingenuity and strength. Its crew, a mix of seasoned military officers and brilliant scientists, stood aboard, waiting for their first mission to begin. They had no idea how their actions would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. For years, Earth had watched as alien species dominated the stars. Galaxies had fallen into the hands of powerful factions, their forces equipped with advanced technology and weaponry. But humanity, despite its potential, had been dismissed by the galactic community. Many believed humans were too new, too inexperienced to be a real threat. Now, Dominance was about to change that perception. As it slowly rose from Earth's orbit, the crew on board could feel the ship's power vibrating through the hull. The captain, Commander Alex Martin, stood on the bridge, his hand steady at his side, as he looked out at the vast expanse of space. He knew this was the beginning of something big, but even he couldn't anticipate how quickly things would escalate. With a command from Alex, the Dominance entered hyperspace. The ship's engines roared to life, and the stars stretched into lines as they shot toward the galactic center. The mission was simple: make contact with the Galactic Council, the governing body of the galaxy's most powerful factions. Humanity had something to prove. They were here to make their mark. However, not everyone saw it that way. The Galactic Council had already heard about Earth's new battleship, but most of the council members scoffed at the idea of a human vessel being a real threat. Some of them didn't even believe the humans had the capacity to build such advanced technology. "You can't be serious," one of the council leaders, a large reptilian alien named Zoreth, muttered as he viewed the Dominance on his screen. "A single ship. The humans are nothing but children with toys." Despite his dismissive tone, Zoreth's fingers hovered over the command console, unsure whether to order the fleet into position. A few cautious members of the council advised preparing for a possible confrontation, but most were ready to ignore the Dominance as another failed experiment from Earth. As the Dominance approached the galactic center, the human crew remained focused. Commander Martin gave a single order: prepare for first contact. His voice was calm, but there was an unspoken intensity in his eyes. He knew this wasn't just a diplomatic mission. It was a test, and humanity's success or failure would depend on how the galaxy reacted to their power. The captain's orders were clear: send a message to the Galactic Council, one that would let them know that humanity was no longer going to be ignored. The message went out, transmitted across the galaxy: humanity has arrived. Prepare for the future. The transmission echoed through space, reaching the ears of the Galactic Council. It was simple, but it carried weight. The galaxy's leaders, now uncertain about how to respond, could only wait. The message from humanity's Dominance had been sent across the galaxy, but the reaction was far from what the human crew expected. In the heart of the Galactic Council, leaders from various factions gathered in a grand meeting hall, their faces flickering with uncertainty. On the giant screens in front of them, the message from Commander Alex Martin played once again: humanity has arrived. Prepare for the future. Zoreth, the reptilian leader, narrowed his eyes. "A bold statement," he growled. "But surely the humans do not think they are a threat, do they?" "Perhaps," another leader, a sleek, insect-like being named Kalath, murmured. "But we should not underestimate them. I've seen strange reports from our scouts. The Dominance is unlike anything we've ever encountered." Zoreth dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "Let us not be swayed by rumors. One ship cannot challenge the might of the galactic powers." But despite Zoreth's confidence, there was a ripple of doubt among the council members. The Dominance had somehow managed to slip through the dense network of galactic sensors without being detected until it was already near the center of the galaxy. No ship, no matter how advanced, should have been able to do that without a fleet accompanying it. Commander Martin, aboard the Dominance, stood on the bridge, calm but focused. He could feel the tension building, not just in the crew, but in himself as well. This wasn't just a mission for Earth. It was humanity's first step into a galaxy of powerful beings. He had to make them see that humans were not to be underestimated. Captain. A crew member spoke up from the communications console. We are receiving a response from the Galactic Council. Martin nodded, stepping forward. A holographic projection of Zoreth's face appeared before him, flickering with a slight distortion. This is Zoreth of the Galactic Council, the reptilian leader said, his voice low and dismissive. We acknowledge your message. But do not mistake this for an invitation. If you intend to attack, we will defend ourselves. Commander Martin held his ground, his voice steady as he spoke. We are not here to attack, Zoreth. We are here to establish peace and cooperation. Humanity does not seek conflict, but we will not back down when our survival is at stake. Zoreth's eyes flashed with irritation, but the human captain's words had a certain weight to them. He wasn't threatening, but there was an undeniable strength in his resolve. Your presence here has already caused concern, Zoreth replied, his voice tinged with annoyance. We will not be intimidated by your bravado. However, we are open to discussions. For now. The transmission cut off, leaving Commander Martin and his crew with a sense of cautious relief. That went better than expected, Martin said, glancing around at his officers. Not by much, Lieutenant Karavos replied, still wary. They're not welcoming us with open arms, but at least they're willing to talk. As the Dominants hung in the vastness of space, just outside the Council's capital, it was clear that the fate of humanity in the galaxy was still uncertain. But for the first time in history, humanity had sent a message that would not be ignored. The Dominants was their beacon, a symbol of what humans had become, a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy's leaders might have brushed them aside at first, but they were beginning to realize that humanity was not a threat they could dismiss easily. The calm after Commander Martin's conversation with Zoreth didn't last long. The Dominants hovered just outside the Galactic Council's capital, waiting for the next step. The crew was tense but ready. They knew the time for diplomacy was ending, and soon, the real test would begin. It didn't take long for their patience to wear thin. From the galactic defense stations came the first signs of movement. Several large ships, each representing one of the galaxy's most powerful factions, emerged from the depths of space. Their sleek hulls reflected the cold stars as they formed a circle around the Dominants. The ships were massive, far larger than anything humanity had ever built, bristling with weapons that could destroy a planet in seconds. Commander Martin stood at the front of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. He studied the ships on the holoscreen. They were preparing to surround the Dominants. The human battleship was no match in size, but Martin knew that size wasn't everything. Humanity had something these ships didn't: strategy, innovation, and the element of surprise. Sir, Lieutenant Karavos spoke up, her voice filled with concern. They're locking on to our coordinates. They mean to fire. Martin nodded. They don't want to negotiate anymore. He turned to his crew. Prepare to engage. Defenses up. No unnecessary damage, but if they fire first, we won't hesitate to respond. The tension on the bridge was palpable. The crew moved swiftly, working in perfect harmony. Each officer knew their role, and the Dominants hummed with life as it activated its powerful shields and weapon systems. A moment later, the first blast came. A bright beam of energy shot from the lead ship, striking the Dominants' shields. The energy ripple shook the entire ship, but the shields held firm, glowing brightly under the strain. Martin's face remained calm, but inside, he knew this was the test they had been waiting for. He gave the order to retaliate. Fire the main cannons, Martin commanded. The Dominants' weapon systems roared to life. A burst of blue energy shot out from the ship's forward cannon, slamming into one of the approaching ships. The impact sent the ship spiraling out of control, smoke and debris trailing behind it as it disappeared into the darkness of space. The other ships hesitated, clearly shocked by the sudden and overwhelming response. They had expected humanity's ship to be fragile, easy to defeat. Instead, the Dominants had proven that it could strike with precision and power. Direct hits to their engines, Kara reported. They're retreating. But Commander Martin wasn't finished yet. He knew the fight wasn't over. Don't let them regroup. Pursue them, but be careful. We don't want to overextend. The Dominant surged forward, its engines pushing it faster than anyone had anticipated. With another calculated strike, the Dominants disabled another ship, its weapons systems going dark. The Galactic forces, stunned and disorganized, began to scatter. The battle had shifted. Humanity had shown its power, and the galaxy was starting to take notice. As the last of the enemy ships retreated into the void of space, Commander Martin stood, his eyes fixed on the now empty space where the battle had just unfolded. The Dominants had done it. Against overwhelming odds, humanity had not only survived, they had won. We've done it, Kara said quietly, breaking the silence. We've shown them what we're capable of. Martin turned to her, a small smile appearing on his face. This is just the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, but now they had seen what Earth's battleship was truly capable of. The aftermath of the battle left the galaxy in shock. News of the Dominants' victory spread across the stars like wildfire. The Galactic Council, which had once brushed humanity aside, now found themselves scrambling to make sense of what had just happened. One lone ship, with only a fraction of the firepower of the galaxy's most powerful fleets, had just outmatched their best forces. On the Dominants, Commander Martin and his crew were still processing the events. The bridge was quieter than usual. The battle had been swift, almost too easy. Despite their victory, there was no celebration. Only the grim understanding that things had changed forever. Captain, the Council is calling, Kara reported, breaking the silence. They want to speak with you. Martin nodded. Put them through. A holographic image of Zoreth, the reptilian leader of the Galactic Council, flickered to life on the bridge. His expression was serious, but there was an underlying tone of frustration in his voice. Commander Martin, Zoreth began, his words sharp. You have made your point. The galaxy sees your power. But let me be clear, this is not over. Your ship may have defeated a few of our fleets, but you are not untouchable. Martin stood tall, his face unwavering. We never intended to be untouchable, but we will defend ourselves. You were given the chance to avoid conflict. Zoreth's eyes narrowed. You've humiliated us, human. You have made the rest of the galaxy question our authority. And for that, there will be consequences. Despite the leader's anger, Martin remained calm. We never sought humiliation. We simply showed that humanity is capable of standing on equal ground with the galaxy's powers. This isn't about domination. It's about respect. The two stared at each other for a moment. Zoreth seemed to weigh Martin's words before responding, his tone slightly softer. We will need to reconsider how we handle humanity, Zoreth finally admitted. But understand this, we are watching you closely now. If your actions prove dangerous, we will retaliate. With that, the transmission ended, and the screen went dark. The tension on the Dominance's bridge was thick, but Martin didn't flinch. He had expected no less from the Galactic Council. They had been challenged, and now they were forced to reckon with humanity's strength. We need to be ready, Martin said, turning to his crew. The Council won't forget this easily, but we won't back down. Not now. Kara nodded. We showed them we're not just another target, but we need to think ahead. The rest of the galaxy will react to this. Not all of them will be as forgiving as the Council. The crew understood the reality they were facing now. Humanity had proven itself on the battlefield, but the road ahead was uncertain. The Dominance was not just a military force. It was now a symbol of a new order in the galaxy, and not everyone would accept that easily. As the Dominance drifted through space, Commander Martin stared out at the stars, his mind racing. The galaxy had seen what humanity could do. Now the question was, what would they do next? The Galactic Council's response to humanity's victory was swift. No longer could they ignore the power of the Dominance and its crew. But as the Dominance continued its journey through space, Commander Martin knew that while humanity had made its mark, there was much more at stake. The galaxy was a large, complex place, and many factions were still reeling from the sudden rise of Earth's power. The ship had been hailed as a symbol of humanity's strength, but Commander Martin understood the true weight of their situation. While the victory had been impressive, it had also put humanity on the radar of every powerful faction in the galaxy. Some of them would never accept humans taking a place at the table of galactic power. "Captain, we've intercepted multiple transmissions from the galactic fleets," Kara Voss reported, her fingers flying across the console. "It looks like they're regrouping. They're planning something." Martin's expression darkened. He knew it was only a matter of time before humanity became the target of retaliation. The question was, would it be a direct attack, or would the galaxy try a more diplomatic approach first? "We need to be prepared," Martin said, his voice calm but firm. "Activate the secondary shields, and make sure the weapons systems are fully charged. We're not looking for a fight, but if they want one, they'll get it." Kara nodded, but her gaze was filled with concern. "Sir, we've proven our strength, but we can't keep fighting like this. Eventually, it won't be just one or two fleets. The entire galaxy could turn against us." Commander Martin thought for a moment, then turned to his crew. "You're right, Kara, but we don't want to fight all the time. We need to turn this into something more. A position of strength, yes, but also one of control. We can show the galaxy that we're not here to conquer, we're here to lead." Martin's plan wasn't just about military might. It was about establishing humanity's place in the galaxy. They would not beg for peace. They would demand it. And to do that, they needed more than just firepower. They needed influence. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," Martin ordered. "Tell them we're ready to meet, but on our terms. Humanity won't be treated like a lesser species anymore. We will take our place as equals, not just in strength, but in leadership." The crew worked quickly, and soon the message was sent. A clear declaration that humanity would no longer play second fiddle to the other powers of the galaxy. It was a bold move, one that could either push the galaxy to its knees or provoke a conflict that would consume them all. As the Dominance waited for a response, Martin couldn't shake the feeling that their actions would change the galaxy forever. The peaceful, diplomatic approach had failed. Now, humanity was showing its true power, and there was no going back. It was time for the galaxy to recognize that humanity was not just a species to be ignored. They were here to dominate, to lead. And if the galaxy refused, they would fight for that place. The next move was in the hands of the Galactic Council, but Commander Martin knew one thing for sure. Humanity had already won. The galaxy would never be the same. The message from humanity had been delivered, and now the galaxy's leaders were forced to consider their options. The Galactic Council, once dismissive of humans, had no choice but to respond. But the message they received wasn't the peaceful tone they'd hoped for. Humanity was not backing down. In the halls of the Council, leaders from all corners of the galaxy met in tense silence. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. The Dominance had destroyed entire fleets with ease, and Earth's rise had thrown the balance of power into chaos. "We cannot let this go unanswered," Zorath, the reptilian leader, said, his voice low and filled with fury. "We cannot allow humanity to walk over us like this. The galaxy must be reminded of its power." Kilath, the insectoid leader, nodded. "A warning must be sent. If humanity is allowed to grow unchecked, it could unravel the very fabric of our rule." Across the galaxy, fleets were preparing. Several powerful factions, still enraged by humanity's rise, formed an alliance to confront the Dominance and crush it once and for all. It was an unprecedented move. Galaxies of enemies, joining forces to remove a single threat. But the humans had become more than just a nuisance. They were now a symbol of rebellion. Commander Martin stood on the bridge of the Dominance, staring at the screen displaying the approaching enemy fleets. His crew had been working nonstop, preparing for what was coming. He had expected this. He knew the galaxy would not accept humanity's sudden rise without trying to push back. "We're ready," Karavos said, looking at the captain. "The enemy is coming in full force. Their ships are massive, and they're coming fast." Martin nodded, his eyes steely. "Let them come. We'll stand our ground. Humanity will not fall, not today." The Dominance powered up its weapons, its massive cannons humming to life as it braced for impact. The ship's shields flickered brightly as the first blasts from the approaching enemy fleet struck. The Dominance shook, but its shields held strong. Martin felt the tension in the air as the battle began. "Return fire," Martin barked. A blast from the Dominance's forward cannon lit up the dark expanse of space. The energy beam tore through the lead enemy ship, causing a massive explosion. The ship was obliterated in an instant, but the other ships didn't hesitate. They came at the Dominance with everything they had: laser fire, missiles, and every weapon they could bring to bear. The Dominance dodged, countering with calculated strikes. The battle was fierce, and for the first time since the Dominance had arrived in the galaxy, the crew felt the weight of the fight. This wasn't just a show of strength. This was a fight for survival. The galactic fleets fought with desperation, but the Dominance was faster, more precise, and its crew was more experienced. One by one, enemy ships fell, disabled or destroyed by the relentless firepower of humanity's flagship. The battle raged for hours, with the Dominance taking damage, but always staying a step ahead. Finally, as the last enemy ship turned and fled, Commander Martin allowed himself a moment to breathe. The enemy had been crushed, but humanity had paid a price. "We've done it again," Kara said, her voice filled with awe. "They're retreating." Martin's eyes stayed fixed on the screen. "This isn't over, but we've proven a point. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again." The Dominance had just survived yet another fierce battle, and Commander Martin knew the situation was far from over. The galaxy had thrown everything it could at humanity, but the Dominance had held strong, emerging victorious each time. The enemy's retreat was just another momentary pause in a larger, more complicated story. However, Martin wasn't sure how much longer humanity could keep fighting. They had proved their power on the battlefield, but strength alone wouldn't win this war. The galaxy's leaders were no longer underestimating humanity, and they were beginning to realize that Earth's rise could be more than just a threat. It could be the beginning of a new era. The balance of power was shifting, and not everyone in the galaxy was ready to accept it. "Captain," Karavos said, standing beside him on the bridge, her voice calm but filled with concern. "The fleet has retreated, but it's clear they're regrouping. More ships are on their way." Martin nodded, his gaze fixed on the holographic map in front of him. "We knew they wouldn't stop. They'll keep coming, and eventually, they'll find a way to overwhelm us. But we're not backing down." "I know," Kara said quietly, "but we need a new strategy. The longer this goes on, the more enemies we'll have. Fighting them all at once, it'll be impossible." Martin thought for a moment, then turned to his crew. "We've been fighting for survival, but it's time we start thinking about more than just holding our ground. We need to take control of this situation. Not with more violence, but with influence." The room went quiet as the crew processed Martin's words. They had been taught that humanity's strength was in their firepower. But now, Martin was suggesting something more difficult, changing the way the galaxy viewed them, not just as conquerors, but as equals. The idea was risky, but it was their only chance to stop the galaxy from collapsing into endless conflict. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," Martin ordered. "Tell them we want to meet, but this time, not as enemies. We're offering a path forward. If they're ready to listen, we're ready to lead." Kara hesitated for a moment before responding. "Do you really think they'll listen? After everything that's happened?" I have to believe they will, Martin replied. They've seen what humanity can do. They've seen that we're not just here to take over. We're here to offer something more. A new way forward. We just have to make them see it. The crew worked quickly, transmitting the message to the Galactic Council. It wasn't just a call for peace. It was a challenge to the old ways of the galaxy. If the Council wanted to continue fighting, they could. But humanity was offering a better future, one where all factions could work together, not in fear of each other, but in cooperation. As the message was sent, Martin stood at the front of the bridge, looking out at the stars. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity had fought hard, and now they were going to fight for something more, a place at the table, not just as survivors, but as leaders. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the heart of it. It was time to see if the galaxy was ready to change with them. The last warlords of the Galactic Concord gathered in a dark war room deep inside the capital world's strongest fortress. Their faces were grim, their eyes filled with fear. The massive human battleship, Oblivion, had destroyed every fleet, every defense station, and every planetary shield in its path. Nothing had stopped it. Nothing had even slowed it down. Grand Admiral Cyril slammed his fist on the table. We cannot let them reach the core. We must fight to the last ship, the last soldier. High Strategist Velkar shook his head. We have thrown everything at them. Our strongest fleets, our deadliest weapons. That ship is unstoppable. His voice was weak, full of despair. The Council had spent centuries believing in their supreme power. The Concord ruled the galaxy with strict control, crushing any rebellion, wiping out any species that resisted. But now, against humanity, they were powerless. A hologram flickered to life, showing Oblivion moving through space like a predator hunting its prey. Its massive hull, black as the void, absorbed every attack. Its weapons fired with ruthless precision, breaking apart the last few warships standing in its way. The enemy had no chance. "They are coming," whispered General Torkin. His voice trembled. "We cannot stop them." Cyril's rage burned. "Then we die fighting." He turned to the commanders. "Launch every remaining ship. Activate all planetary defenses. We will not bow to these." Before he could finish, the war room's main screen changed. A deep, mechanical voice filled the air. "This is the warship Oblivion. You have no fleets left. You have no defenses left. Surrender now, or face total destruction." The room fell silent. Every leader felt the cold grip of fear. For the first time in history, the Galactic Concord was powerless. The mighty empire that ruled for thousands of years, that had crushed 100 civilizations, now faced a single enemy. And that enemy had proven itself unstoppable. Admiral Cyril's hands curled into fists. He wanted to fight, to die with honor. But then he saw the faces of his fellow warlords, defeated, broken. He looked at the screen, at Oblivion, at the symbol of human wrath. He exhaled slowly. We must surrender." Velkar nodded. "We have no choice." Silence hung in the air. Then, one by one, the warlords agreed. A final transmission was sent to Oblivion. "We surrender." Seconds passed. Then came the reply. "Acknowledged." The screen flickered off. The battle was over. The Galactic Concord, once the strongest power in the galaxy, had fallen. And humanity had done it with a single warship. For centuries, the Concord ruled the galaxy without challenge. No species had ever dared to stand against them. No empire had ever survived their wrath. But now, the great rulers of the galaxy stood defeated, not by an armada, not by a grand invasion, but by a single ship. The warship Oblivion loomed over the capital planet, its dark hull reflecting the light of a dying war. Below on the surface, the once mighty warlords of the Concord gathered in the grand hall of the Supreme Council. The air was heavy with silence. Fear filled their eyes. The transmission came. The voice was calm, emotionless, and final. The war is over. You have surrendered. Now you will listen. The warlords shivered. The humans had not spoken much before. They had only fought, only destroyed. Now they would speak, and the entire Concord would listen. You fired the first shot. You attacked without warning. You thought we were weak. You were wrong. Many in the hall lowered their heads in shame. The war against humanity had started as a simple act of conquest. A human exploration ship had entered Concord space years ago. The Concord had destroyed it, believing humanity to be another primitive race to crush. They had never expected a response. They had never expected oblivion. Your fleets are gone. Your worlds are defenseless. Your empire is broken. We give you one choice. Surrender completely or face extinction. Gasps filled the hall. The Concord had never been given a choice before. They were the ones who gave ultimatums, who crushed civilizations. Now they were the ones begging for survival. High Strategist Velkar stepped forward. His voice shook as he spoke. We accept surrender. Then you will obey. The terms were simple but absolute. The Concord would be dismantled. Its member species would no longer rule over others. There would be no more war, no more conquest. Humanity would not rule them, but it would ensure they never threatened anyone again. Some warlords wanted to resist. Admiral Xyrol clenched his fists, rage burning in his eyes. We are warriors. We cannot. Velkar cut him off. We lost. His voice was hollow. We lost everything. Silence. Xyrol's anger faded. There was nothing left to fight for. The final message from humanity came. We desired peace. You chose war. Remember this lesson. Then, oblivion turned. The massive warship, the symbol of humanity's vengeance, left the capital's orbit. It did not fire again. It did not need to. The warlords stood in stunned silence. The battle was over. The Concord was no more. And across the galaxy, one truth became legend. Humanity did not conquer. It simply made war impossible. The war was over. The Galactic Concord, once the greatest power in the universe, had surrendered. Its warlords had bowed, its fleets had burned, and its defenses had crumbled. And yet, humanity had not claimed the throne. The warship Oblivion, the unstoppable force that had shattered the Concord, disappeared into the darkness of space. It left behind only silence and a message that echoed across the galaxy. We desired peace. You chose war. Remember this lesson. For the first time in history, the galaxy was without a ruler. The species that had once feared the Concord now watched in uncertainty. Would humanity take control? Would they replace the warlords? Would they become the new masters of the stars? The answer came quickly. Humanity did not demand control. They did not claim planets, nor did they build an empire. Instead, they made one thing clear. There would be no more tyranny, no more conquest, no more endless wars. The age of empires was over. The former members of the Concord struggled to adjust. Without their overlords, chaos threatened to spread. Civil wars, power struggles, and rebellions flared across different worlds. But then, another message arrived from Earth. Govern yourselves. Trade, learn, grow. But if another empire rises, if another warlord seeks to rule the stars, we will return. The meaning was clear. Humanity was not watching over them like conquerors. They were watching like guardians. If another species tried to bring war, they would face the same fate as the Concord. Fear of oblivion kept the galaxy in check. Trade routes reopened. Former enemies sat at the same table, forced to negotiate instead of fight. New alliances were formed, not through conquest, but through survival. The fear of humanity's return was stronger than any law. Legends spread of oblivion. Some called it a ghost ship, an unstoppable force that could appear anywhere, at any time. Others believed it was still out there, hidden in the void, watching and waiting. In the halls of power, leaders whispered among themselves, would humanity truly return if war broke out again? Would another species one day build a fleet powerful enough to challenge them? No one knew, but no one dared to test them. On Earth, humanity watched the stars, satisfied. They had not sought war, but they had won it. They had not sought power, but they had shaped the future. And so, the galaxy changed. Not through conquest, not through oppression, but through fear of the one species that had done the impossible. Humanity had proven one truth. They were not conquerors. They were the final warning. And no one would ever forget.